Imagine a time when forests were vast, untouched by modern tools and machinery, yet people lived in harmony with the land. Native Americans across diverse tribes developed a deep connection to nature, using one powerful tool to manage and shape the environment: fire. Through controlled burning, Native Americans practiced a form of environmental stewardship that promoted health, sustainability, and balance in the ecosystem. Today, we are going to explore how these intentional fires helped shape the forest, wildlife, and landscapes of North America. Before modern firefighting techniques, Native American tribes understood the power of fire, not as something destructive, but as a tool for renewal. One of the primary ways they managed the land was through cultural burning, or fire stick farming. Across different regions, from the forests of the Pacific Northwest to the plains of the Great Basin, Native American tribes like the Apaches, Cherokees, and Miwoks used fire to maintain the landscapes they relied on for food, shelter, and spiritual practices. Controlled burns were intentionally set in specific seasons to clear out underbrush, dead vegetation, and dry grass. This process prevented larger, uncontrollable wildfires by reducing the fuel load in the forests. These burns helped remove excess dead material that could otherwise fuel dangerous wildfires. But more than just reducing fire risk, they also promoted new growth. By clearing the land, controlled burns encouraged the growth of new grasses, wildflowers, and plants that were crucial for food and medicinal purposes. These fires provided fresh, nutrient-rich soil that attracted wildlife, especially grazing animals like deer and elk, making hunting easier and more efficient. The new generation that sprouted after a fire was not just for humans. It also supported the animal populations, creating thriving ecosystems. In fact, certain plants that were essential to native diets, such as berries and edible roots, thrived in the aftermath of a burn. Not only did burning maintain open landscapes for easier travel and hunting, but it also kept certain tree species like oaks and pines healthy. The fire would clear the ground of weeds and invasive plants, allowing for the continued growth of these trees and the acorns that they produced. But controlled burning was not just about practicality. It was deeply tied to the spiritual lives of many Native American tribes. Fire was seen as a purifier, a force of renewal that connected people to their ancestors and the natural world. The use of fire was also a way of maintaining balance within the land. Tribes understood the natural cycles and knew that fire could help sustain the health of the ecosystem, ensuring food security, healthy wildlife populations, and a landscape that remained resilient for generations. However, with colonization and the rise of modern fire suppression practices, these traditional methods were lost, and the land became less resilient. Today, we are witnessing the results of fire suppression: larger, more destructive wildfires that devastate communities and ecosystems. Interestingly, as we face more frequent wildfires, land management agencies are looking back at these ancient practices, reviving controlled burning as a tool for wildfire prevention and ecological restoration. And with that, I would love to introduce this book, We Will Be Jaguars, A Memoir of My People by Nemonte Nkwimo and Mitch Anderson. Nemonte Nkwimo belongs to the group called the Waoraoni, and they live in the area, in the Amazon, in the area that covers Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil. That is where they are. That is where their ancestors were. That is where they were born, and the land that they belong to. The land belongs to them, but they also belong to the land. And they believe that their ancestors still roam that land as jaguars. In this book, Nemonte talks about her fight, the fight of her community, the fight of her tribe, the fight of her people, against the oil companies. We all know that the Amazon is the lungs for our planet. From there, we know that the Amazon produces oxygen that we still need all over the world. Such forests, the Amazon, the Congo, we see massive exploitation by oil companies because they know what is inside, underneath the ground. They know the oil that is underneath the ground, and they want it, they need it, they take it. They take it without the permission of the people who are living there. We see native Indians, we see people in Congo, we see people in Sudan rising up and saying, no, you cannot exploit us. They come and they promise these people, they promise them development. They promise them schools, we will build you schools, we will build you hospitals. But in the end, what they are taking is more than even what they are giving. And on top of that, they are polluting the environment. We see loss of species, we see loss of plants and animals. We see when there are oil leaks, how the rivers, the waters are polluted. The Native Americans and all these indigenous people living in such lands, they suffer the consequences of such invasions because they cannot have access to clean water. What they used to eat, they depend a lot on berries and edible roots. They cannot get that anymore because their land, the earth, the water is all polluted by all these oil companies. And of course, they do not pay for any compensation. They swindle such people, they swindle these indigenous communities of their rights of their land. They come and they make them sign these documents, these contracts that they cannot even read, they cannot even understand. They just sign these contracts away because they've been promised schools and hospitals, their children will be educated, but they don't know that they are signing their livelihood away. I love how Nemonte uses this book to tell a story about her people, to tell a story about how her people used to live and how her people want to continue living. She tells the story of their fight, their continued fight against these exploitative oil companies who just come to take. They take, and take. And I love that she called this book, We Will Be Jaguars, because the jaguars symbolizes their power. It symbolizes their power, their need to fight, their need to protect. I would highly recommend this book because as we see now in the current world with everything that is happening, all these natural disasters, the fires that are currently happening, the fires that are burning all over in Australia, in the US, we see a need for the communities, for the governments, for policymakers to go back to the old ways of controlling such fires because their ways are not working. Let us look back. Sankofa says we cannot move ahead without looking behind. Let us look behind and try and find a solution for such natural disasters. I highly recommend this book. If you have read it, I discovered it because it was one of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks, and I read it. It was the last book that I read last year. And I absolutely loved it. So much knowledge, so much history is in there that we can learn from. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it has inspired you to fight against exploration. Fight against exploration of such communities and their land.